between the people who love the wrong thing, sex, food, materials, getting angry, and the people who reject God's love altogether, like the homosexuals, but all of them. Okay, so, and what does Dante say? He says, where now? Okay, you'll understand all that. And he says, Dante at 91, on page 106, "O sun, which clears all mists from troubled sight, such joy attends your rising that I feel as grateful to the dark as to the light." I wish I saw that in Italian. You see what a kind of pun that could be. I mean, I want him to say something nice to Virgil, which, if you really understand it, says you haven't clarified a thing. And maybe that's what he's saying, and maybe he isn't. Maybe he's being ironic. Maybe he's just being a pilgrim who doesn't know anything yet. Maybe he's stupid. I can't really tell. But I would like to think that Dante, having cleverly set up this whole episode of the wall, where Virgil's got everything wrong, thinks that Virgil's got everything wrong, and isn't going to accept an explanation from Virgil that doesn't explain the law, which is what Virgil has just given him. So I hope he's just trying to be nice and yet, say, I didn't really get it, which you were just saying, I don't think it's unlikely a bit. Anyway, that's the way it is. All you get from Virgil is these ad hoc explanations. That is, ad hoc meaning whenever there's something different from something, then Virgil makes up some kind of distinction of some kind of sin to some other kind of sin to fit it. But it doesn't have any unity. It doesn't really get at anything deep. Virgil, what Heidegger has a funny way of talking when he says about people like Virgil, what they say is correct but not true, by which he means they're describing Virgil's rivals about distinctions. There really are distinctions between us. But it's not true in the sense that it doesn't give you any deep insight. It's David helps any of the local philosophers like Aristotle might say it's the difference between getting the appropriate of something and the essence of something. You don't even know this stuff in psychology, but they give examples of how so, for instance, you could say a human being's mind is a laughing animal, or man is a venomous but anyway, those are general properties. That's what explains all that's important about man, Aristotle thinks. And it doesn't explain why men laugh or why human beings walk on 2 feet, but it doesn't have to. It tells you what's crucial. Virgil never gets the right answers. He only gets these ad hoc kind of answers. And now one more just in time. And now when I said I was going to say something too clever by half, maybe, is what I'm going to say now. I sort of jumped ahead. What I think now is probably still okay. But if you ask yourself now, where is Virgil sitting when he's explaining it like this? And getting it sort of wrong, and getting only the ad hoc. He's in Canto 11, Circle 6. And what is Canto 11, Circle 6? It's the place where the heretics are people who get it wrong about Christianity. And I think, but now I say, this might be overinterpreted, that Dante there is saying that Virgil is not got about Christianity, and he puts it all there. He doesn't say anything about it, he just puts it where he is. And I think, I don't know, now let's see, I'm almost done. So the heretics, we still talk about Epicurean. They believed that they wouldn't accept the idea that love they don't understand it at all. So the Stoics think that what you do Okay, on page 100, the footnote says, the aim of philosophy is to achieve happiness, absence of pain. Doctrine thought it meant the denial of eternal life. No, I don't think that's important. I don't know why I'm even saying it. So I will skip. The other thing, another one of the people in the paragraphs, let's try that, is Farinata, who's a Stoic. And Virgil's also they all want self-control. It's the highest virtue. And they think that trying to get bliss out of the world is a terrible mistake. Dido. And so Virgil can't understand the shake-up. He can't understand the importance of love. He can only think, I'm going to stop with this, that love is always a mess. It causes Dido to go crazy. It gets Paolo and Francesca into trouble. And there's a funny place where, page 112, Canto 12, Circle 7, line about 40. He's describing what happens when Jesus comes down to hell to get out the Hebrews. And there's something like a big earthquake. And that's not important. What's important is he says, if I'm not mistaken, it was just before the coming of him who took the souls from limbo that all hell was shaken, so that I thought the universe felt love. And Jesus is love, all right, and love is breaking in on 112, 3 stanzas down. So I thought the universe felt love. Now that you'd think would be nice, wouldn't you? Everything attracted to everything and everything held together. So that I thought the universe felt love and all its elements moved toward harmony, whereby the world of matter, as some believe, is often plunged to chaos. And so, and that's it. A very peculiar view of love. But a view that follows that whatever kind of love, agape love, eros, romantic love, it all only causes trouble, according to the view that Virgil holds. We've done the city of Dis, the wall, and how Virgil didn't know how to get in, and how finally an angel is sent down by Beatrice to bash the door down, and they get into the city of Dis. And now we're ready to have different kinds of punishment. That's where we're going to begin. Outside of the wall of the fortress, remember, it's a fortress and not a prison. And you'll see why, and that's relevant right now in a minute. Outside the wall, there was wrongly directed desire. That is, desiring, making your whole world around romantic love, like Paolo and Francesca, or about food, or which you don't have to read and think about, or about material things. Those were all misdirected love in the language of St. Thomas Aquinas. It's not the language of Virgil. Virgil doesn't understand that. We'll get back to that later. And now we're going to the crimes of turning away from God. And, those are all ways of turning away from God and making some lesser good, like sex and love and food or whatever, your God. And now we're going to rejecting God's creation and in effect making your own will, your autonomous will power, your God, the ultimate authority in your life. The only authority that you pay any attention to is yourself. Those are the sinners. Remember that they have built the wall of the fortress to exclude God, and that inside they have set up their own objects to love, always unnatural. And I keep coming back because it's the simplest, to the homosexuals who, instead of engaging in heterosexual love, willfully reject that which God made for people and made people for, that was the natural, as they would say, thing to do, and made up their own unnatural pleasures, and all of them are like that. Within the fortress, they've rejected the things that are naturally attractive and go after things that they choose to make attractive. But the important thing, as far as their being sinners is concerned, is that they have rejected God's creation. That is, the natural things and their natural attraction, and the natural attraction of God. And as you go down, this is the final sort of punchline, the sins are ranked by the fact that they reject more and more, until at the very bottom, we have to skip all but the one on Odysseus, just because we haven't got time, and because the punishments are pretty boring anyway. They're you did so-and-so, and now we're going to do some funny trick on you that is the sort of opposite of what you were doing. But we want to look at the very bottom ones, because they are the worst. And what makes them the worst is they are the people who rejected even the claims on them of their country, which particularly Dante feels very, very strong patriotism, and their own intimate, their own children, and brothers and so forth. They have rejected the most extreme form of claims, and asserted their selfish, prideful autonomy, that only, after all, what they care about, what they choose to care about, counts. Now we're going to just go into detail on one of the cantos, Canto 26, on 221. And our reason is because it's about Ulysses, that is Odysseus, as we called him when we were reading him in Greek. Now in Latin he's called Ulysses, and same person, but Dante's got a very different story than Homer to tell about him. And it tells a lot about the world, the difference between the world of Homer, the multi-worlds of Homer, and the very unified world of the creation. I used to say the universe, but the universe is some special modern thing. The universe is where the nebulae and the electrons and all are all in one system of causal interaction. So, and I was worrying for a while, and the Greeks would call their world the cosmos, which is the sort of lawful order of the planets as they saw it. And I was trying to figure out for a while, what am I supposed to call the world of Dante? And if it isn't the cosmos and it isn't the universe, well, it was staring me in the face. It's the creation. That's what it's called. You've got a creator God. What the creator God creates is the creation, and we're all creatures. So now we're going to go down and just look at the different relation of Odysseus to his world or worlds, and how and why and what's wrong with that from Dante's point of view. It's the wrong way to relate to the creation. Okay, so here we go. According to Dante, Odysseus goes directly from Circe without even going through Hades and without going home. He heads directly toward the mountain of Purgatory. He doesn't know that's where he's going. He just heads out into the Atlantic Ocean to see what's there. Now, his punishment is in the circle of the false counselors. Only we don't know yet what he was falsely counseling. His punishment exactly is to be a flame. And now, sort of in a flame, only you can't even see it, but he's a flame. And the tongue of the flame is his tongue. And when the flame tongue waggles, then that's how he talks. And he's going to tell us his story in a second. So, why is he in the punishment for false counselors? Well, look on 22:22. And before we even get into his punishment, though, I better back up a tiny bit. On 2:22, What's important is Dante's reaction to him. You won't understand yet why it's important till you understand what his false counseling was. But it's important already to see the third stanza, line 40, roughly, in Canto 26. And this is Dante talking. I stood on the bridge. It's a rock bridge overlooking this place down below where these flames are walking. I stood on the bridge and leaned out from the edge so far that, but for a jut of rock I held to, I should have been sent hurtling from the ledge without being pushed. And seeing me so intent, my guide said, there are souls within those flames. Each sinner swathes himself in his own torment. And the important thing to see is that Dante has a special relation to this sin. The way he almost got into the sin of Paola and Francesca, so much so that he was talking to them and then fainted because he felt so identified and empathetic with them. So he somehow feels identified and empathetic with Odysseus. That is something Odysseus has done that Dante is also tempted to do. And now we have to find out what. Well, there's a mention in line 59 of the ambush of the horse, but that's not false counseling. So that's just making a trick that the Trojans fell for. I don't think you get to the false counseling until you get to page 223, line about 85, where he says, not 85, 88, not fondness for my son, nor reverence for my aged father, nor Penelope's claim to the joys of love, could drive out of my mind the lust to experience the far-flung world and the failings and felicities of mankind. And that's important. That means what is finally motivating him that keeps him from going home and so forth. When I read the Odyssey, I always puzzle about why he does go home. If his main interest is to go where no one has gone before and see what no one has seen before.
You looking forward to your trip?
That he just keeps traveling around and seeing more of these amazing sights and monsters and civilized people and like the Phaeacians and uncivilized people like the Cyclopses and so forth. It's really peculiar that he does go home, and it needs a lot of explaining, which I can't really...
When are you leaving again?
Dante, I think, has a better intuition.
Let me post this. Here we go. "16th. Plenty of time. Plenty of time. Something like that. Oh. Let's see how the computer plays it. Let's slow it down. Want to pause it. I think that's it. I think we stagger them.
The Odysseus of many twists and turns, which is the...
This guy, Hubert Dreyfus, by the way, is the inspiration to the professor in Futurama. Professor Hubert.
First sentence of the Odyssey. By the way, I decided the right way to translate that funny what's the polytropic, the word that nobody knows how to translate. I've decided that it's devious. That's what he is. But I'm not sure. I mean, that doesn't capture it either. There's no one word to capture but it's got to do with the fact that he's able to sort of get people to do things, and by sort of saying the right things to them, he's able to change, disguise himself, and so forth. So anyway, according to Dante, quite plausibly, he just sets out to go on to more adventures. And now I have written in the margin 254. Why do I want to see 254? No, we don't want to see 254. And now, but where's the false counseling that he's there for? Not yet. So he went on with his men who, and it's now what he says to them. That's why he's aflame with a tongue. False counselors say false things and get people to do bad things. And what does he say to them? At the top of 224, he says just what he ought to say. Shipmates, I said, who through 100,000 perils have reached the west, do not deny to the brief remaining watch of our senses stand experience of the world beyond the sun. I don't know why he puts it that way, but it doesn't matter. The crucial thing is experience. More experience. That's what he really wants. And then he says, Greeks, you were born to live not born to live like brutes, but to press on toward manhood and recognition. I don't know what manhood is exactly, but I take it sort of being mature, not in the Kantian sense of being autonomous, but growing up to be what human beings are at their best. We should be what human beings are at their best, and that is to have lots of experiences. It turns, I hadn't thought of putting it this way, it turns Odysseus from James Bond into Captain Kirk. I was close to saying that. And now the whole point is having lots of experiences. And with this brief exhortation, I made my crew so eager for the voyage, I could hardly have held them back from it when I was through. And that's the false counsel. The false counseling is to say that the highest thing you can do, human beings can do, is have lots of experiences, see all the good things and the bad things that people can do, and that would be to be a human being at his or her best. And to put it in our way, he says, let's experience other worlds, other gods. Let's find new ways of getting in sync. After all, Zeus, the highest god, is the god of world crossers, so we should keep on crossing over into new worlds. And that sounds right. That's more important than staying at home with Penelope. That is, in a world, in a understanding of what it is to be a human being, where the top god is a god of strangers and guests, sort of settling down at home with your wife and kids and father and mother, it doesn't seem like the highest thing you could do. And now, why is Dante sort of leaning over and almost falling into the punishment himself. That's where sort of the medieval world comes to collide with the Homeric world. Dante sees the attraction of what Odysseus is saying, but he says that it's false counseling. It's wrong. And what's wrong? Well, Dante, what's wrong is, well, there are two things. I don't know which way to start. Okay, what's wrong with it is that you shouldn't just be out for experiences. You should only have, there's only one thing that's important, and that is salvation. And there's only one world, that is God's creation. There's no way to explore new other worlds because there aren't any other worlds. Wherever you turn in this creation, it's going to be the same kind of human beings and the same kind of love that is rewarding and the same kind of unnaturalness that is punishable and so forth. So the idea of going around and experiencing other worlds could only mean just like sort of having a lot of fun, getting thrills. You're not really going to learn anything important, and you're going to be distracted from what is important, understanding better and better what it is that human beings really need, namely God, and how to get in touch with God. Now, the only missing piece is, why is Dante so dangerously tempted by the keep having experiences of other worlds? Well, that's because he lives at this very interesting moment between the medieval time, which was a closed world, which was God's world, all organized hierarchically, everyone had their place, and everyone understood how to get from their place to the highest place, and everybody had this opportunity to go and have a direct vision of God if they lived a good life, and so forth. Dante comes from that world into the Renaissance, which is happening in Italy then, which is the whole rediscovery of the Greeks and presumably of the fact that there were these other than Christian worlds, and that and Dante is just fascinated by all kinds of other possible experiences, other possible places. He would have gone on that boat ride out through the Straits of Gibraltar into the Atlantic to see what was there, just like Odysseus. So it's dangerous for him. Let's see where we are. So it makes no sense to seek new experiences, sensations, curiosities, see all the failures and felicities of mankind, as Odysseus puts it, just for its own sake. If they don't teach you anything new about what's important, namely salvation, they're just a distraction. They have no merit. They don't make for manhood or for human beings at their best. And you can't get to purgatory and paradise by doing that kind of looking around. And that's what happens. The boat is headed for purgatory by accident, in a way. Odysseus didn't know that there was nothing out there in the southern hemisphere where he was heading, but the Purgatory Mountain, that they saw the mountain of Purgatory. And then at the bottom of 224, about line 125, they saw this peak that was very tall, and then there was a storm, and the ship was turned around 3 times and sank, and at the fourth, 3 times, at the fourth, the bow went down and the sea closed over us and the light was gone. Their boat was sunk because they were on the wrong mission. And Dante doesn't want to fall for that temptation. But if you read the whole book, you'd see that every time there's some new information about some other country or some scientific experiment or any sort of news about the open world, so to speak, Dante's interested in it. I mean, he's no polytheist, but he's also definitely thinks that anything that you can understand, even if it isn't directly edifying, that is directly leading you to God, is fascinating. And therefore, he's fascinated by Odysseus. But he shouldn't be. I mean, because he was in the dark woods, because he was in despair, he's been put on this mission to discover how to lead a good Christian medieval life by Beatrice and God and the Virgin Mary all and cooperating and so forth. And that's what he should be worrying about. And he shouldn't be paying any attention to any of the kind of interesting, quotes, interesting things about which he's so curious, because they don't matter unless they teach you how to be a better person. Okay, so that's, anybody want to say, that's all I have to say about the Odysseus one, but it's kind of a little window into the difference between polytheism and multi-world people, like the Homeric Greeks, who had to remember lots of worlds were whooshing up, and lots of gods, and the kind of closed world of the medievals, where it's all created by one God in one hierarchical order, and it's all the same all over, and it all points toward God. Couldn't be more different what God and gods are and what human beings' jobs are than that. Okay, now, anybody want to say anything about that? Or we'll go on to the next events. Yeah. Interesting. My first thought is, it's fine to admire the whole creation. Now, this is sort of me talking, and it may turn out to be wrong. But what I was saying earlier, so my feel is that there's no point in going anywhere else, because the whole of creation is all the same. Whether you stay at home and admire every little thing and love every little thing because God made it, or whether you go off to Bali, you won't see the Bali people worshiping some other god in this perspective. You'll just see them doing the same things that we do. So as soon as you get into the Renaissance, you can rephrase it that way. And I think Shakespeare, for instance, would have understood looking at all the different wonders of creation. But I don't think in Dante there's any point in looking at anything. You could anything you see as God's creation, and anything you see has a certain amount of fulfillment value.
How you doing?
And you should get your love in sync with it, I think. Beatrice, did you want to say something?
Yeah, but Dante doesn't say that either.
I'm listening to some lectures by by Hubert Dreyfus. While I try and figure this passage out. So please excuse the noise. Well, excuse the words while I try and learn this. I think it might be interesting. More interesting than me trying to learn how to play this.
Well, good.
In my opinion, anyway.
You mean?
No, he goes on a journey. I thought the difference between the two travelers was that he has a first.
The journey through hell, and the big journey, the book journey. He goes on a journey, and it's to see what now? Between the two of you, I have to figure out this. He sees all of creation all right, and that's a lot of stuff, all the inferno and all the purgatory, and it's important that he does that. But it's always with the final edifying direction that he should see it only insofar as it teaches him the right way to get into the relation to this Creator God. He shouldn't see it as a variety of worlds interesting in their own right. As soon as you do, you go from being a pilgrim, which is what he's called. I don't know by whom, but by Chiardi, and that's all right. The pilgrim is on a trip, and he sees lots of things, but he's got one goal, and they're all supposed to be teaching something such that he will find and appreciate that goal. Whereas, you try to think, you can't think of Odysseus as a pilgrim. He's not going any one place, and he's not going to find out, he's not going anywhere to find out about his salvation. He's a what? I don't know what's the word. Well, what was Captain Kirk? Yeah. Yes, that's what couldn't be the case for Dante, right? If the journey is an end in itself, but and every bit of each piece of the journey, which comes to the same thing, the more worlds you see, the better, and that's the point in this. But everything that you see has to point toward finally getting the right relation to God. That's the point if you're a pilgrim. It's a subtle difference, but a really, really clear one, I think. And that's, and if you don't, you will only see it if you see why he's so tempted by, and yet trying hard to be utterly different from Odysseus. That's so that he has to see all of this, as he says, he has to see all these aspects of creation, but they always teach him the same thing, so to speak, which, something like, he could have learned, you don't have to go on this trip to become saved. Why did he have to go? I'm just trying to figure this out as you guys push me into it. Can't imagine. Now, he's the only one who did this trip in the history of West. And so there's something very peculiar, maybe a kind of loophole that there's no fixing. I can't think of any reason why, however he was lost in this dark woods, this very disoriented, having affairs with other women, Beethoven accuses him of, among other things, and getting into this political squabbles, turning up the side, all of that, none of that would seem to motivate having to go to the bottom of hell, to the top of purgatory, in order to get to paradise. Nobody else seemed to ever had to do that. I could give a kind of version of it that would be later Kierkegaardian kind of thinking, that you have to go to the very bottom of despair before you can come out on the other side. But that doesn't seem to be a Dante thing. It isn't as if he gets more and more despairing as he goes down to the bottom of the inferno. He's already hit bottom in the dark woods, and then he has to go on this whole trip, and then he gets to see God. I'm stumped. If anybody knows an answer to this, let me phrase the question clearly. Why does Dante have to make this extended pilgrimage to end up with a vision of God that thousands or tens of thousands or maybe millions of other people have had without making this trip? I don't know. You have an idea?
Isn't it just an exemplary human journey that he's desperately Dante is just like any person?
Well, in a way, that's what you have to say, that Dante's doing it so that all of us can learn all the wrong ways of doing things so that we can avoid them and finally end up doing the right way of doing things. Now, he doesn't, that sort of somewhat conflicts with the dark woods. Well, not really. I suppose he's lost, and therefore, and everybody's sooner or later lost, and I still don't really understand too well why you have to see all these sins which he doesn't have even an inkling of doing. I mean, he's not interested in collecting material possessions, and he's not a schismatic, and he's not a bad kind of lawyer, and he's not a murderer. Why he has to see that all these things are wrong and produce bad things, except if, as David says, it's not really Dante who has to see them for himself, but he sees them to report this for everybody, to help everybody. He certainly doesn't present it that way. It's a kind of summing up of all the wrong ways, and finally at the end, all the right ways when you get to the Paradiso, of getting a completely fulfilling life. And Dante is going to show it to us. But I think there's a kind of tension between that and the idea that he's personally lost and that it's for him that Beatrice came down to do this and so forth. I think probably you're supposed to read it both ways. I mean, but I don't understand really the for him part. I think David's got a view of the for everybody part, because this is going to teach whatever your temptation is. It will show you sort of what an ugly thing that really is and what a terrible life in eternity you're going to have if you go on doing it. And then it's going to show you how to try to get over your addictions and your willful pride in purgatory, and then it's going to show you all the rewards you're going to get in paradise. That's for each person, some part of the book or other should show them something edifying. And that still leaves me a little puzzled about whether Dante himself gets edified by it. Okay, Beatrice, yeah.
The thief that is driving him back is following him. And that's why then Virgil says to him, well, for your own sake, it would be better if you follow me. Therefore, for your own good, I think that while you follow me, I will be your guide.
And which is the she-wolf? I don't remember which animal is which. Yeah, but one of them, each of them symbolizes something. I'm just curious, which bad thing is he most endangered by? Really? I hope so. Because I don't think of Dante as pride, autonomy, and so forth. I think of him as either overwhelmed, too much love for Beatrice, which I don't think he could possibly have by his chivalric thing, or he's got these temptations to anger, and he's got these temptations to other women, and I guess that's what's his problem. But it's clearly much bigger than his problem somehow. I mean, the book. I mean, for those little problems, people have had them and gotten over them without having to see the whole moral universe, moral creation. And I think David's right, but I think there's no easy way to say that this is for everybody. You've got to figure that out for yourself. Dante wants to tell it as a story about his life, his relation to Beatrice, and so forth. Okay, I can't do better. If anybody can put it together in a paper, that would be terrific. Yeah. That's nice. I wonder what that is in Italian. You got the Inferno in Italian, right, Beatrice? He wants to... Oh, he does. Oh, and it says in the middle of our life? Okay, great. I didn't realize you had it. Terrific. So that's good. That's helpful. You see what he's saying? So Dante sort of builds in the generalization that he's not just talking about in the middle of my life, I found myself in the dark woods, but sooner or later everybody in their own way goes astray and finds themselves in the dark woods. And this book has got something in it for everybody who finds themselves in the dark woods, not just Dante. I think that must be how it's supposed to work. It still has this peculiar feature that even why each person in their own way didn't find their own pilgrimage, but why anybody has to go through seeing all of this ugly scene, and I still don't understand. But if you do say, well, but this is a book for everybody, and that's how they took it, then it makes sense, because surely somebody who's reading it needs to experience each of these punishments. I mean, the one that's important for them. Dante's tempted by the anger punishment. I mean, it's interesting to try to keep track. Certainly, he faints for Paula and Francesca. He gets involved, I forget how, in the anger punishment, but you could look. He gets very nearly into the homosexual punishment because he wants to talk to his old homosexual teacher, and he has to go under the falling fire flakes to do it. And he almost falls into the Odysseus's temptation, and he has to go through, you'll see the fire at the top of the purgatory, which is purging lovers of any kind of misdirection in their love. So you can see that Dante, maybe that's part of it. Dante sort of includes in the book a kind of distinction, which I was bringing out, but I wasn't really paying attention to it, between the sense in which this is specifically relevant to him, and you can find out by looking to see which punishments he is close to falling into and has to be warned about. It's interesting that he sort of, sometimes he's telling you in one level about his life.
Yeah, I've been here for 12 hours. Still on the same bar. Blah. No, I just it's a nice day, so I thought I'd stay up a bit later than normal. I need to do that bit. Yeah, but you guys are probably you deserve it. Let's just put it that way. Oh yeah? How did you get on? What did you try to play? Any Beethoven? Anyway, too much fun. Handel's Prisoner, Nabucco. Okay. I don't know what Nabucco is, but I know Handel. And I don't know the Prisoner's Choir. It sounds quite depressing. It's maybe my kind of thing. Schwanensee. Okay, me too. What is Schwanensee? Schwanensee? Sea of the Swan. Oh, nice. Yeah, I guess it's German. Schwanensee. Yeah, I don't know. That's a bit better. No. Double click in. Yeah, something like that. Hubert, come back, please.
Life.
Keep me
Then he's
company.
emphasizing which punishments he really cares are important and edifying for him. And sometimes he's telling you about human life, our life, and then he gives you all the punishments. That's helpful. A little, yeah.
And you can only really understand one system.
That's right. Good. Because it's this kind of hierarchical system, you have to understand why this sin, if it's inside the city, or this, what's the opposite? What's other than sin? Because sin is always rebellion and rejection of God. What about these people who love too much? I just need a word.
Harlots.
How's that? The virtues and vices talk about what we need to understand each vice and why it's wrong and how wrong it is. And that's the sense in which all of the... and they all relate to each other. I mean, you have to understand why gluttony is a worse vice than too much romantic passion. And you have to understand why the homosexuals are worse than the, or at least the promiscuous ones in hell are worse off than the lovers, and worse off than the happy homosexuals you'll see at the top of the purgatory, who are monogamous and so forth. And all that is in a big system. And you're right, you have to understand any one of them as worse or less than another. That's what you're thinking. Okay, well, that's all sort of important and somewhat exhausting. I guess now I wasn't going to talk about something which now I have to, but it's not in your reading, but we've come so close. If I list all the places where Dante gets into trouble, one of them is a place where he is looking at what's going on as if it were entertainment instead of edifying. He's not learning about how it affects his life, and it's a temptation for him, presumably. This is on page 254. This is Canto 30, line 120. There, people are sort of yelling at each other and putting each other down like a kind of sitcom, and they're insulting each other, and I guess, are they punching each other? I'm not sure. I don't think so. They're just sort of insulting each other. And Dante's finding this very exciting and fun, just like watching a sitcom, and he gets in trouble for it on 254, at the bottom half of the page, about line 130. I was still standing fixed upon those two. Those are the ones insulting each other. And when the master said to me, "Now keep on looking a little longer, and I quarrel with you." When I heard my master raise his voice to me, I wheeled about with such a start of shame that I grow pale yet at the memory. See, he's involved again. He's gone in, he's taken in, he's enjoying this kind of activity instead of realizing that it's a bad thing and trying to see it's what you're supposed to not do it. And then I think that's enough. Yeah. So it's interesting that's the only other place I know of where he sort of puts himself into the story as an almost sinner. Okay, now we want to jump ahead to the bottom of hell, because we need to talk about that too before we can get on to purgatory. And the bottom of hell is the worst... I left out a little something on 255. My book is still open to it. What Virgil says when he explains why Dante shouldn't do it.
You all have fun at work.
To wish to hear such baseness is degrading. That means something like, well,
thanks for
not
dropping
all
in.
Experience is edifying. Some experiences are just, I don't know, stupefying or brutalizing and so forth, and Dante had better not be going around collecting those experiences. Okay, now to go to the bottom of hell. The bottom of hell are the people who are the most bad, that is, the most prideful, that is the most self-sufficient or trying to be self-sufficient, and they've excluded themselves in the name of autonomy from ever getting fulfilled by God's love. And now there's a bit of important psychology here that Dante believes. And it's going to turn out to be very important later when Virgil explains the whole system of all these punishments. That is, God has created the world. This is a very important thing to just say sometime, and right now just as well. God has created the world with stuff with all sorts of varying degrees of fulfilling power. Other bodies, good food, material possessions, power, I suppose. I don't know how to put it, but everything is, you should know, and you should sort of love, or and now love means desire. It doesn't mean agape love. It doesn't mean erotic love either. You should just desire things in proportion to how satisfying they are. So sex is at the top of the list of things that are pretty satisfying, except that if you go into them with 100% the way Paolo and Francesca do, then they get to have their own drawback. But each thing then is, all of it's created by God's love, and and each thing is created with a certain amount of fulfilling power, and we're created, I call that, I think, homing missiles from Augustine, like, that is, and we're created as needing total fulfillment and getting a certain amount of fulfillment out of all these created things, and seeking total fulfillment. None of them can satisfy us except finally a direct vision of God. That's the picture. Now, why do you need to know it now? Well, because of the peculiar character of the people at the bottom of the Inferno. You've all read it, I hope. How many know what the punishment is for the people at the bottom of the Inferno, the really, really bad people? One or two. The rest of you don't know. Are they in hellfire and brimstone? Are they cooked for eternity? No, they're frozen solid in ice. It's marvelous how different Dante's view of evil is from the Protestant view of evil. For Dante, they are immobile, frozen in ice, and that's because you need just one phrase to understand it. If you're open to the attractiveness of things, then you are moved by the things, like food or romantic love again, and so forth. And now it's a pun on moved, the way I'm saying it. When you're moved by something, you are literally moved. That is, you don't do anything or act. People don't do anything or act except insofar as they're moved, literally, by the attractiveness of the various things in God's creation. And that means if you reject God's creation and its attractiveness and want to be autonomous, then you get less and less moved the more autonomous you get. So, if you got to be completely autonomous, you'd be completely immobilized. Nothing would be attractive for you. And since nothing was attractive for you, since we're all...
Well, if you couldn't see the piano there, your face would be a telling story. What do you mean? Hey, Chris, the one and only. Chris, meet Chris. This is Chris. I am banging my head against this this piece, these last two lines. Oh my god. Part of me keeps telling me that it's not that hard, but it's actually hard. And then I'm like, but it's not that hard, but it's hard. I think, yeah, but yeah, you're right, it is really warm. This hoodie, I don't, yeah, it's tough. I should go get some ice cream. Oh. And then that's not even the right notes. Then it's F. And then I can kind of cheat here. Oh no, I don't do the big one. I do. So I don't need. Well, maybe I kind of do. No, let's. Oop. I think that's about up into the middle of the last line. And then we do the C's with this. Ugh. Oops. C's with. This doesn't sound good. C's with S. Oh, I'm missing the S. Okay, Hubert, come back.
All attractiveness finally comes from God, and you rejected God, then you are just, and you're cold because you aren't emotionally involved, you aren't passionate, you aren't loving, you aren't open to anything. I mean, even the guy who loves his white BMW convertible is cold. He's got a rather limited object, but he's obviously over committed to it, but to be really, really cold is to have no attractions at all because you're so self-sufficient, and that is so prideful that you won't accept to give up your willpower for the attractiveness of anything.
My piano.
that's the, you know, the line, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. And if you won't give up your willpower for anything, finally you won't be moved by anything. And that's why you're in the ice.
Okay.
And that's
Fine.
the ice is just the realization of that is the sort of dramatization of the fact that these people are cold and not moved by anything. The more you get to the bottom, the more you find people who have turned against their lords, their bosses, their brothers, their family, their country, and the more we find these sinners who, having refused all attractions, are just like rocks. Dante kicks one of the heads of the people frozen in ice, and Virgil says that's a good thing. Don't feel bad about it when he trips over it, because they're just
the same as that.
These really bad people. They're the ultimately unresponsive people, unopened. They refuse all connections to stay self-sufficient. And
let me pause.
That's it.
So the different colors, they were meant to be me explaining earlier this morning the bit that I was working on. So the red bit is really difficult, or I thought was really difficult, or even impossible. I don't know if I need one of those other pedals to be able to sustain the that A natural and this E, or whether I just hold it down the whole time. And then the blue was just me asking whether I should learn the rest of the melody, the top bar melody, before trying to learn the movement down to do the bass. And then yeah, the pink is just to finish up where the phrasing ends. It might be. Maybe that's what Liszt was aiming for. Oops. Oops. What am I doing wrong? Exactly. Ding. And then no, because it's A here. And then we go to C to see what we can see with this. Ugh. Do we do that? Do we just mash it? No, we don't need to sustain on the bottom. That's weird. That it's the only one you can do with one hand, and it doesn't want you to do this bit. Then we go, and then mash all the keys up here with that bit just before the pink. Dun, 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 dun. Are you guys enjoying Hubert, by the way? I like it. It's quite educational. I like that he's like, yeah, you can't just marry your piano. You have to. Or he says that Dante's trying to say that you can't just marry your piano or your white BMW. You need to get a life.
I just wanted
Anyway.
to notice, I mean, how different that is than thinking that hell is hot. I mean, in Milton's Paradise Lost,
He's not the boss of me, yeah.
which I think I may have said
He's
I
not.
had
He's not. He's just explaining his worldview. He's a really smart person, though, so his worldview is
So, has anybody read Paradise Lost?
informed.
It's very, very hard. You read it in high school? Wow, that must be quite a high school. Did you understand something? No. Okay, well, that's what I was afraid of. Okay, anyway, but this much is clear, that Milton has lost the sense. Well, let me put it to first what he's lost. For Dante and St. Thomas, evil is non-being. And that means sort of the eviler you get, meaning the more self-sufficient you get, the more you reject the attractiveness of the creation, the more you are just
Maybe he
impotent.
is.
And so you get to Satan, who's frozen in the ice at the bottom, isn't flying around
And up here, you could go
rallying
there.
his troops the way he is in Milton. He's all he can do is flap his wings and act as the kind of refrigerator for this lowest part of hell. He's the one who's cooling the ice. But the important thing is that
This one.
in Dante, evil is finally sort of self-destructive and weak, whereas Milton really believes in the power of free will and really has Satan full of energy, running around defying God, rallying the truth, setting up a whole other community in hell, and heat is somehow associated with that. I don't even understand the Protestant story. I mean, why should hell be full of fire? Why not ice? Why should evil people be hotter than non-evil? You can understand Dante better, I think. I mean, I can understand the view that says that evil people are colder, and the eviler they get, the colder they get. I can't understand the
Something
idea.
like that.
Satan is full of energy, and Milton seems to admire that. What I guess I really think is that Milton and the Protestants are sort of already in the modern world where will and energy are thought of as good things and not as rejecting what God has to offer. So, in any case, I want to just so in modernity we have an active, willful Protestant Satan, and Milton admires his energy.
Paddle running away.
And then let's go to the end. So we're now at the bottom of hell, 283. There's one last joke which Sciardi doesn't get, or else he's too prudish to tell it. I wonder if you get it, or got it. Maybe I'm making it up, but I don't think so. Okay, so there's Satan on 283, the very beginning of Canto 34. Like a whirling windmill, there he is, stirring up a bitter wind, and so forth. And now he's hideous looking and so forth. And look at that, there's 3 faces. I just noticed this for the first time, 40. One was in front and it was fiery red. The other ones were white, and yellow. I don't know, it wasn't fiery red in the sense of hot. I'm sure, although I'm surprised that Dante calls it fiery red. That seems to be a kind of glitch in the poetry. But anyway, we get to page 285, line 75, and finally reach the bottom of the world. And that's already a sort of pun. The bottom of the world is Satan's bottom. And because he's imprisoned in the ice with his upper part sticking up into the inferno and his lower part sticking into that sort of empty space where between the Inferno and the Paradiso.
Good luck with the Rex.
So
thank you. Thanks for dropping in.
If this
Good
so
luck
down
with
here,
cooling down.
I don't think I
feel
got
like
quite far enough.
Jumping in the fountain in
down
Victoria
here,
Park
Satan
might
is in here,
cool you down a
and
bit.
His head is up here. That's where he's got the three
Or the
in his
pond
mouth,
in Westbourne.
Brutus and Cassius and Judas. By the way, just parenthetically, look how committed to politics Dante is. He's got these three bad people. You can see why he has three. It's sort of the opposite of the Trinity. But of the three, one is the betrayer of Jesus. And you think that would be pretty serious, super serious. And then Brutus and Cassius with Caesar brought about the change of the Roman Empire into an empire, and Dante has views about that. And oddly enough, he's put in the mouth of Satan those three, two political and one religious bad guy. And then the legs of Satan stick down here into the space that is a sort of crack that Virgil and Dante go to get to purgatory, which is made out of the dirt that's hollowed out of the Inferno and out of this space in here. And the bottom of the world
21 degrees,
where the most bad matter is. And so as you go down, things get more and more just plain matter. And as you go up and up, they get more and more spiritual. You go way up into the Paradiso, where they're completely spiritual. So what happens when they reach the very bottom, at the 285-75? When we have reached the joint where the great thigh merges with the swelling of the haunch, that's literally the bottom, obviously. And then Virgil has to turn around. They've been climbing this way, and now they turn around at Satan's bottom.
What the heck was that?
Up this way along his legs, and so.
Sounded like a bird.
So his master straining turned his head to where his feet had been and began to grip the hair as if he was climbing, so that he moved toward the world. So where do they turn around when they really reach the bottom? Well, it's Satan's anus. It's the asshole of the world, the way Dante sets it up. There's no question about it. Chiardi just doesn't tell you that in the footnote, but you can figure it out, and that makes perfect sense in this picture of creation. So there they are at the absolute bottom of Satan, and then they climb up here, and they get to purgatory. So now we're going to get to purgatory. Any comments, though? We're just leaving the Inferno. It's time anybody wants to say anything about life in the Inferno should say it now. Usually somebody has some hard questions. We learn something. We've already got enough hard questions already about the journey and the pilgrim. I haven't learned something yet. I've learned something to worry about. That's the first stage. You start to worry about something. Lucky if Dante's is smart enough, there's something deep going on that you can find out in the hour journey. Moving onward now, we're going to purgatory. And for and all these paintings have Thanks. Okay. So I'm just going to sum up quickly. In eternal torment, you go to a new kind of torment, which lasts for a long time. But it's a different kind of torment because it's no longer meant to punish you forever. But it's the kind of suffering that an addict has to go through to get over their addiction. When the whole purgatory is filled with recovering addicts who've repented and have chosen to try to get over their addictions. So the punishments will be like the bad kind of inversions of the Inferno. For instance, the gluttons are the food they desire most is right out of reach. They get a punishment from Tantalus. But those gluttons are people who are in effect dieting. starving themselves in order to get over their desire. And it's true of all of them. They're bending over, literally bending over backwards, some of them, like the pride people are carrying heavy weights and are all bent over because they're all too hot. They're all voluntarily suffering the opposite of their particular kind of addiction, so as to get over it. And when they do, then they can go on to paradise. And it's up to them. They'll know when they're... And notice, I never said this before, but obviously, what's being fixed with their desires. This is Christian. It's not that they're learning to behave like not eating food. This is important. How did I never say this before? It isn't as if they've learned just not to have sex or with promiscuous or something and so forth. It's not that they've learned to stop being ways. It's and that those reactions. They've learned to stop desiring promiscuity. They've learned to stop desiring fancy food, etc., etc. They've learned to stop desiring being the best and proud of that. And when their desires are sufficiently purified, they'll know it when food doesn't look attractive to them anymore, etc. And then they'll be able to go on up the mountain of purgatory, stopping at the various places where the particular punishment or particular sin that they've got gets punished. By the way, Chiardi's got something wrong in a diagram I want to mention to you, simply because the moral is I've now checked, and it turns out to be absolutely wrong. These names of the ledges are not Dante's. He didn't name the ledges and the punishments. So remember, when way back to my fussing about the opportunists, and I said that those weren't opportunists. Those were were the lukewarm, which is very different than opportunist. And then I worried, but whose name is opportunist? And it's Chiardi's. And so the moral of this is, when you think about your papers, if you come out with the feeling that after reading a certain punishment that it's really not the way it's described by Chiardi, you are right. You have a complete right to rename that canto. And here's a place where he renamed what I want to rename everything. And we'll get back to it, but I may forget, so I want to look at it right now. On page 30, there's no page 30, but if you go back from page 32 to 31, page 30, is the picture of purgatory. And the top level, Chiardi calls immoderate love. Now, I'm going to say this over and over because it's very important. There is no immoderate love in Dante's creation, because total love and devotion is the appropriate relation to God. So what is love? It's never immoderate love. It's misdirected love. I mean, the only thing that you could do wrong is to totally adore, totally worship, totally love anything other than God. And so we don't want to call the top level immoderate love. You want to call it misdirected love. And Dante's clear about that. Chiardi's got this problem with trying to... Chiardi's a Stoic who wandered into translating this book by mistake, I think. But where are we now? Okay, so... one more thing, just to give you the overall picture, that everything is different. So you aren't reading much of the Purgatory, so I have to give you some feel for it anyway. So instead of this terrible smell which they had in hell all the time, that gets mentioned every once in a while, it's now fragrant perfume. Instead of all the howling bad noises from hell, it's now people singing. Instead of blaspheming God, it's now prayer. And in general, instead of darkness, which is the general way it must be in the inferno, mostly only by the fiery walls of the city, it's the sun shines. I mean, I don't know how the sun... Well, sure, the sun shines, that's right, because they're out here now. And so the sun shines in the daytime. And the sun, it's important to know, is stands in, so to speak, represents, or I don't know quite how to put it, the attraction of God. The sun is God in the way it's treated. And so whenever the sun is shining, then you can go toward it, and it's attractive, and it pulls you to get better and better as a person. And at night, it follows from this that at night when the sun doesn't shine, you can't do anything. You can't walk from your ledge to the next ledge if you're purified. You can't even walk upward, getting better at getting more over your addiction. You can't do anything at night. Because remember now, all movement comes ultimately from God. Another way to put this is God is the prime mover, because God's attraction is what ultimately moves people. And if there's no sun, then you're out of the presence of God, then there's no prime mover, then you can't move. And that's exactly what happens. Dante's very consistent. And Virgil can't understand this, because he doesn't understand ever. And you've got to keep remembering that God is the completely fulfilling something or other that makes it always. You can never love too much, because God is worshipful, adorable, totally lovable, and so forth. But when the sun isn't shining, then these people can't improve. This is on Canto 7, lines 14. Oh, 14 is just the name of somebody. Sordello's talking on page 85, line 40. He's explaining, this guy Sordello, just what I'm telling you. He says, we're not fixed in one place, he replied, but roaming at will up and around this slope, far as the gate, and I will be your guide. But the day is fading fast, and in no case may one ascend at night. We will do well to give some thought to a good resting place. And then, skipping a verse, getting to 49, what is it you say, my guide asked? He's puzzled. Virgil. He doesn't understand this whole picture of something utterly fulfilling that's attracting you and making you able to do whatever you do. He says, if one sought to climb at night, would others block his way, or would he simply find that he could not? And that is really, he's asking, why can't people do things on their own willpower? And he's getting the answer, you can't do anything, really, on your own willpower. It's always what you do, a response to, it's always what you do is in terms of your desires, and your desires are always responses to the attractiveness of the creation, and therefore, ultimately, responses to the attractiveness of God. And Virgil can't understand any of that. He says, Sordello says, once the sun sets, that noble soul replied, you would not cross this line. And he ran his finger and so forth. And skipping to 61, my Lord's voice, that is Virgil, touched with wonders, leading to the place that you spoke of, and where we can, in effect, lie down and rest. So the whole principle of why and how they're climbing this mountain is something Virgil can't understand, and we're beginning to be prepared for what's going to happen when Virgil's understanding really gives out completely. Virgil's always talking about God. But if he doesn't understand this basic truth, that there is something in the universe that's absolutely fulfilling and adorable, then everything he's going to think is going to be wrong. And but it gets clearer and clearer that it's wrong until the middle of the purgatory, which we'll talk about next time, or maybe we'll talk about this time, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. No, let's do it now, because I'm talking about it now. So let's jump to Canto 16. And 16 to 18. That's where Virgil finally explains everything and blows it completely and gets everything all mixed up. And let's start with it now, and I'll review it again at the beginning next time. But it's so, and I've been sort of preparing you for it, but Dante's not much help, because Dante seems very confused at second hand, so to speak, about what Virgil knows and understands and what Virgil doesn't know and understand. He was very clear at the wall the Christians and the Christians understand. But now we've got him trying to explain everything. It starts on page. Oh, there's this whole discussion of free will. I'm going to skip that for the time being. And then Dante's whole discussion of the relation of church and state. I'm skipping that for the time being. I want to go directly to Canto 17 and then talk about what's going on. And now you've got to realize that scholars have only... Don't try to read secondary sources about this, because they are all completely hopeless. Because somehow or other they've got to believe what Virgil says. And you could see already at the wall that Virgil didn't understand what it was or why it was important. And now Virgil's explaining the whole structure of purgatory and of God and of love and everything. And he's all mixed up. And if you go to find any help from the critics, you're not, because they're all mixed up. And I can't fix it, but I can show you what he's trying to say and how it's mixed up. And also maybe give you an account of why it's mixed up. Okay, let's see now. So here we are in the middle of purgatory, and what you're getting is some kind of mixture of Aristotle and troubadour Christianity, somehow put together to try to explain everything that's going on. What I really think is there's no coherent way to put it together. It's not Dante's fault that you can't get troubadour love of your lady together with Aristotle. Views about desire, views about the total blissfulness of contemplating the supreme being. It is true. What I push Dante for is that he doesn't signal the fact that Virgil is all mixed up. So by the time he does, I'll try to show you that he does. It's an early. So here's what the best I can do. So we can discover you all the time. And then after the sun goes down, you discover that different stars come out, starting on 181, line 70 roughly. And then, and now they discover they can't walk anymore. Or strength, why do you melt away? I said several times. They're in a different place than they were the previous night. And my legs were turning to lead. They've gotten to a certain level. And now he asks Virgil, finally, dear Father, what have you heard is washed in rain here? Though our feet may stay, I make me not to stay with speech. And now he starts a big speech about how things are. There is we'll come back to it. That's not what he's explaining. He says, and he says, line 85, that love of yours, life before my eyelids, so is paid for. There's sloth screens in the once neglected oral. He's already telling you. Sloth is sort of being too lazy, not passionate about anything, not caring about anything. But that you may more clearly know the way which your entire attention, give your entire attention to my words, you shall gather good fruit from delay. We'll use this time we can't walk for Virgil to explain things. Now comes confusion. He says, neither creator nor his creatures. Now what is he mean about creation and creatures? He's supposed to be talking from antiquity. I've looked it up in the Italian. That's what it says. I don't know. I mean, it looks like, I don't know what it looks like. It looks like Dante can't keep clear track of what Virgil can know and what he can't know. You'll see it happening again in a minute. He says, neither creature nor creator move as you well know, but in the action of animal or mind-directed love. Now that's funny, because he didn't know a little while before that you had to be in the sun in order to move. Now he says it's perfectly obvious, as if, well, either he just learned it, which I don't think, or that anybody knows that you don't move except insofar as you love. Now then it or too much fervor. Now, I don't know, that sounds like a story about misdirected love, and that's nice, except that's not a Aristotelian Virgil sort of thing. And then it gets even weirder. While it desires the eternal good, I don't even know if I should put you through this. Don't get upset and don't try to understand it, because it's all confused. The primal good is, or the eternal good, is Aristotle's prime mover. There is a kind of God-like something in Aristotle. It's just not the God of the Christians, and it's not a God that you love, but it is somehow the mover of everything. And then you should love secondary goods. Virgil is talking mostly Christian-like, only sort of mapping it sort of into sort of semi-Aristotle talk. Oh dear, I don't know. I shouldn't have even tried, but I'm going to read you one more paragraph, and then I'm going to say I don't know what to make of it. But when it turns to evil or shows more or less zeal in an ought for what is good, the creature turns on the Creator. You realize how all wrong that is for those three stanzas? That's not Virgil's and Aristotle's view. That's the Christian view. I've just been telling you that you can love some things too much and some things too little, that you desire the primal good, and the creature could turn on the Creator. But he didn't understand how the creature could turn on the Creator. That was what was happening at the wall. So Virgil launches into this seemingly Christian story, and I don't get it. And then he says, at the top of 182, line 110, and since no being may exist alone and apart from the first being, whatever that is, by their nature all beings lack the power to hate that one. Well, now he seems to think that now he's being like Virgil, sort of, because he doesn't understand the wall. He doesn't understand sin. He now has flipped over to the view that since God is desirable and fulfilling, no one could hate God. He doesn't. So now he's missing his story about sin. Now, I shouldn't launch into this. Let me go to the punchline. Where does he get things wrong? I've got 3 minutes. Go to page 190. The final important thing for him is that you have the power to control your love, and that means to, let's go back to the bottom of 189. The crucial thing is in line 63. That is, what you just take line 63, that you, because you have reason, you can guard the threshold of consent. That Virgil thinks that since nothing in the world is really worthy of total love, your job to be a good person is to cut down your love to equal the relative lovableness of things. But being a Stoic, he thinks that the most important thing you got is the willpower not to totally love anything. And that's right. Here Virgil is being consistent. I mean, he's being wrong in explaining the Divine Comedy, but he's consistent with his Stoic view that the highest thing you've got is the power not to go and adore anything, because nothing is worthy of total love and adoration. That's sort of the sadness of Virgil. That's why Virgil is in limbo. Now, according to that clock, 1 minute. I said at the very end, Dante lets you in on the fact that at that point Virgil is going wrong. And how does he let you in on it? Well, he says he was listening to Virgil, and what did he do listening to Virgil? He said he found himself falling to sleep, line 87. Since Virgil had answered my question so clearly, is he being ironic? I think so. My mind was rambling. I was rambling drowsy within my mind. So the first thing is, when somebody gives you a lecture explaining things clearly, you don't go to sleep. I don't see anybody asleep here today, at least, happily. So, but if you do give a confused and over the head of bad lecture, people who are always being given the opposite of what they had before, these people who didn't love enough, are being made to be frantically energetic. So he was awakened, John 89, I'm going to stop, in an instant to a pack of people running towards us, a mob. They broke upon the mountain, and what are they saying in line 1 to 3? Faster, faster, to be slow in love is a fool's time. So Virgil is talking on the circle of sloth because he is a case of sloth. He's slow in love because instead of saying you should soar up in love and direct it toward God, he's saying you should control your love and cut it down to how satisfying the world is. And there Virgil has gone completely wrong. At least it gets clear there. There's a while I don't understand it, but there I think you can see Dante repudiating. I went very fast, too fast last time, over Virgil's explanation in the middle of the poem of the whole.
Yeah. Lecture 4. I think I'll stop here. Start winding down. Try and get some good rest for practice tomorrow. Thank you for keeping me company. I hope you're enjoying Hubert. Bye-bye. Hello. Welcome back. Hope you're enjoying work. TTFN. Ciao, ciao for now. Good luck. Have fun. What am I doing? I could not stop lurking. Yeah. Can't stop playing either. Okay, maybe I can. Oh yeah? Okay. Gives me an excuse to play. So I can't remember the notes. I can't remember. Well, I can do something. I can't. At least I've not tried. I'm pretty sure I can't. Yes. Yeah, my pleasure. I'd love to keep playing. What else could I play? Let me play. Let me get my Beethoven book over here. Wow, let's go. Just because I haven't played it in a while. At least not all the way through. Oof. Oops. Let me get my pedal sorted as well. Keep pushing it away. I missed a bit. Man. Wow. I can actually see it in the gaps there. Let me start. Try again. Mm. Hey, no problem. My pleasure. Next time I'll maybe play. I'll maybe play Fairlies. Don't know the fingers are. Yeah, they're all over the place. I better stop there. Right. Thanks for keeping me company. I will see you next time. I'll be on in about 10 hours. I'll see you then. Bye.